DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as DreAllDay, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, we are on part 4 of our ongoing series, which will now conclude with today's episode of why Western society is collapsing. If you have not heard the first 3 episodes of the show, I think you pretty much can figure out what you should do. Make sure you listen to those so you understand where we're coming from as we get to the final 3 episodes here in this series. Let's pick up right where we left off on point number 10. Again, the subject, why Western society is collapsing. Number 10, individualism. People are more focused these days on themselves than they are on the community or on the group. It did not used to be this way. It used to be, if you lived in a town, if you lived in any area, any type of community, then you knew your neighbors. Your neighbors knew you. You knew their kids. They knew your kids. You could trust to send your kids outside to play with the other kids down the street, and you knew nothing was going to happen because those kids had, you knew who their parents were and what they were about, and you knew what was happening between there, where they were going, where your kids are going, and here, where you were. That's the way a community was. And there are still communities that operate this way. Again, in big cities, this is less prevalent than in smaller towns, but it used to be like this everywhere. It used to be like this in big cities. It's not like this in big cities anymore. Everybody's from somewhere else. People tend to be more focused on themselves than they are on the community. Most people have never even considered if they are or even need to do anything, let alone to consider doing anything, let alone to actually do anything for the community. Now, here's the thing. I'm not against the concept of individualism. A lot of things that I talk about are based in individualism. I had some people criticize some of the things that I say when it comes to individualism. I am more on the side of the pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality than I am, hey, somebody needs to do something for me mentality. That is individualism. That is rugged individualism. Any of you remembers back in 2020, maybe 2021, I believe it was the African American Museum of Art. It was either them or, forgive me if it wasn't them that put this out. Let me see if I can find this document. And what it was talking about was things that, it was attributes that are attributed to white Americans, or attributed to whiteness, or attributed to white supremacy. And I don't remember who the group was that created this document, but it was very ridiculous, some of the things that were being said in this documentary. And I mean, not documentary, in this document. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know if I have it, but I remember saving this in 2021. I talked about it on my show back then. And one of the things in there was rugged individualism. Rugged individualism was looked at as a sign of whiteness. And that was framed as it being a negative thing. And I'm looking to see if I have it. And I don't think I have it. I don't know what I did with that, but maybe it's this. Yes, actually, I found a piece of it. Now I got to find the rest of it. So I see a piece of it here. And when was this? This is May 24th, 2021 when I saved this. This is the National Museum of African American, and it's HC. I don't know what the HC stands for. National Museum of African American History and Culture. Yes, so I did quote the right organization. This was May 24th, 2021. Let me see if I can find the rest of this document so I can tell you the part that I was actually thinking about when I saw this. May 24th, 2021. And that was just a snippet, the part that I just told you about. And maybe that snippet was maybe just what I posted that day, but it doesn't show the rest of it. So maybe I don't have it in here. Let me see if I can find it in one more place while we're talking about it. The point is, I'm not against individualism. I'm not against the concept of individualism. I am not against the concept of people looking out for themselves and taking care of themselves. All right, I found it. So it is aspects and assumptions of whiteness and white culture in the United States. And I downloaded, well, the one that I'm seeing here was from June of 2021. So here's what it says. the Protestant work ethic. And these are things, again, that are aspects and assumptions of whiteness and white culture. So they're framing this as a negative thing, because this is about an African American museum. So they're juxtaposing themselves against white people. They say that hard work is the key to success is a form of whiteness. Work before you play is whiteness. And if you didn't meet your goals, you didn't work hard enough is another reflection of whiteness. Here's the other one, rugged individualism. This is the one that this is the piece in this graphic that I wanted to point out. The individual is the primary unit. Self-reliance, independence and autonomy, highly valued and rewarded, and individuals assumed to be in control of their environment, i.e. you get what you deserve. These are reflections of whiteness, and if you're going along with this, you're doing something wrong. And again, this is all from the African American Museum of History and Culture. And I am completely against them framing this as negative. I'm with most of the things that I just read there for the most part. I can go into details and split hairs on it, but for the most part, I'm with this when it comes to individualism. At the same time that you are an individual and you're focusing on doing what you need to do, you also need to ask yourself, how is what I'm doing contributing to the whole of the group? I played a team sport. Yes, individually, I want to work on my game, be in great shape, have big muscles, be strong, be able to help the team, and also make sure I'm working on my game individually so that I can advance my career even after I'm done with this particular team. At the same time, I had to ask myself, how is what I'm doing contributing to the goals of the team, which is we want to get as close as possible to competing to win the championship. You have to ask yourself both questions at the same time, and they both matter. So individualism matters, but it is not exclusive from collectivism. That's the point. And individualism is one of the main virtues that helped Western society become what it is, because people wanted to come here to be able to individually express themselves and live the way they wanted to live. And that's not bad. But when people get so focused on self, such as to completely ignore or to have no concern for the impact of their individual actions on the larger group, that's when we begin to have problems. This individualism is showing its face strongly in the United States of America, as we have conditioned people to focus on how they personally feel and put that above how their decisions and how their actions may affect other people. And this is a serious issue. And people are so focused on themselves, they barely even notice the other people who are operating within their orbit. And on a micro level, you notice this when you're out and about. You see a person so focused on looking at their phone that they don't even notice they're about to walk into a person. Then they walk around you, never even look up from their phone. And they don't even realize what could possibly be happening to them. Or you get on a train and some person is playing their music out loud off of their phone and nobody else wants to hear that shit, and they're just playing it out loud because they're just focused on what they can do for themselves. These are microcosms, small things, but in the big picture, this is kind of what's happening. People are so focused on what is going to get me something for myself, forget about what it does to everybody else or how it affects anyone else in the sphere of what I'm doing. And if everybody starts thinking like that, we're going to get chaos. Point number 11. Today's topic, once again, is why Western society is collapsing. Number 11, weakened principles and lowered standards. These are terms that you hear me talk about all the time here on this show because they are centrally important to what work on your game is about. And what work on your game is about, this being a performance and a results-based business called life. And if you do not have principles and standards, then you will not perform up to your best level, and there's no way you're going to hit a standard. You remove principles and standards, you get chaos and disorder. That is a scientific law known as entropy. Most people have no principles and no standards, which leads to a society in free-for-all. If no one had any principles or standards, there'd be complete anarchy in the streets. This is a subject that I touch on all the time, and on an individual level, this is extremely true. Any of you who don't have principles and standards in any aspect of your life, you get chaos. You already got it right now. On a macro level is also true because we cannot agree. If we cannot agree on what the principles and standards are for a community, organization, or a country, then we are getting anarchy, and we're slowly moving towards it. When people cannot agree on principles and standards, again, entropy takes over. Chaos and disorder must ensue. Not could ensue, must ensue. There is no inverse to this law because it is scientific, it is inevitable, and it is guaranteed. You either have standards or you're moving towards chaos, building or destroying. This also tends to be exacerbated by people feeling highly disappointed by outcomes of society, such as an election not going the way they wanted to go, not making the money they wanted to make, not realizing the dream they thought they would. Generally being unhappy with their current state of affairs leads to more problems. And when people aren't happy with their state of affairs, they tend to throw their standards and principles out the window because they feel like they're in a desperate or impossible situation, which is exacerbated even further by some politician or people in mainstream media telling you that your situation is impossible because of Donald Trump or because of Elon Musk or because of MAGA or because of ABC, whoever you think or whatever you think the problem may be. And if people keep preaching that to you, eventually, if your mind is weak, you may eventually accept that nonsense. And then you believe, well, hey, there's no possible way I can work here. There's no possible way I can succeed and my plan can work here in life. So I might as well just go do some crazy stuff because I have no other options. Even though that may not actually be the truth. If you believe it, then it's quote unquote your truth. And you may go act out on your truth, quote unquote, even if it ends up putting you in a worse position. Have you ever seen anybody fall victim to this? Of course you have, because it happens all the time. And this is what happens in our society when people no longer have principles and standards, or those standards were never properly ingrained in them in the first place, which often happens when you come from a broken home, you don't have both parents available. Point number 12. Today's topic, once again, is why Western society is collapsing. Number 12, encroaching laws and less freedom. In a divided populace, some people are happy about this and some are not. The United States Congress passes laws or more specifically, they pass bills that become laws if they get signed into law by the president. And the problem is they very rarely do they take away laws. At least they're not taking away laws and rules as quickly as they are creating and adjusting laws and rules, which means they're slowly putting a squeeze on our freedoms because they're always creating new laws. And what is a law? A law is a restriction on what you can do. It's telling you what you can't do. That's what a law is. So if they're creating more of them than they are taking them away, then that means slowly and slowly the box around you is getting smaller and smaller. Now I'm painting with a broad brush here, but generally that's what's happening by inductive reasoning. So there are people who are pushing back against this, which only causes Congress to push back in response to them even harder. When people push back on laws restricting them, all the lawmakers do is make the laws even stronger to make sure the next person doesn't come out and try to be the rabble rouser who goes against the grain. On top of all this, there are some people who are happy when Congress makes and passes more laws. Whether they completely understand what's happening or not doesn't really matter. They're just happy that Congress passed a law because you have been indoctrinated into this side of I am with everything the Republicans do, or I'm with everything the Democrats do, or against whichever one, depending on what side you are a part of. So anything they do, you're just applauding it just because they did it. This is a bad idea. It's a very bad idea for an everyday citizen because no politician is on your side. No politician is here to help you, regardless of what they say. And even if they happen to do something that does help you, they did that. You being helped was an inadvertent outcome. That was not what their aim was. Their aim was to help themselves. You happen to get helped in the process. But when they do something else to help themselves that screws you in the process, keep that same energy, as people like to say. So it's the outcome that we have fewer freedoms because there are more laws, and people who go against the grain of that and push back against it get made an example of. That's what happens. And the group of people who are the two large group of people who feel very strong about their positions are these people who are, first of all, the ones who are making the laws, and even them going against each other. That's one large group. And the end result is that there's a wider gap between them and the people who feel very strongly about their positions, being the everyday citizens. And this is where you get January 6th, 2021. You get them when that happens. You get two groups who feel really strongly about where they stand, and there's a pushback. And you add a group of people who is looking to hold on to power. These are the politicians. And to hold on to that power, they will do more of what they're already doing that people already disagree with. All this becomes is a mixture of just a combustible mixture that becomes a big problem when it eventually boils over. Again, you saw it boil over January 6, 2021. That's an example of it boiling over. And that was on a very small scale. Now imagine if masses of Americans were to boil over because they don't like the way things are looking right now, and it does not seem to be going in a positive direction, despite their best intentions and despite you trying to keep your head up and be optimistic and think positively about the future. Regardless of all of that, you still don't feel like things are going the right way. Eventually, people are not just going to keep sitting and taking it. Some people will, but then someone's going to come along and galvanize them. You get that many people, the masses of people, not happy with a situation. Again, this is how you get it January 6th. Point number 13. We're on point number 13? Yes. Point number 13. Today's topic, once again, is why Western society is collapsing. Number 13, the common man is no longer respected. I gave you the example. I talked about my grandfather a couple episodes back. It used to be that a common man could have a quote unquote regular job all of their working years. They can make average money and be the average worker at that job, making average money, and would still be, that man would come home. He was still highly respected in his community. He was highly respected in his own home. He was highly respected by his children and his wife. And he was able to take care of everyone with the money that he made at that regular job as an average guy. That is increasingly no longer the case. You can't do that anymore. You used to be able to. Just 2 generations ago, my grandfather did that. All of his adult life, he worked at a regular job as a regular worker. My dad had 5 siblings, 6 kids. And he took care of that family with that salary, a home, and again, was raising his kids. There's no way someone living today can work a quote unquote regular job and take care of their family just on the equivalent salary to what my grandfather was making back then. So let's just say he was making what today might equate to somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000 a year. You can't take care of a family of 5 with that. You can't do that anymore. So when a man can no longer do this, what happens is he may no longer garner respect from other people the way that he did in the past, because he isn't able to take care of his family the way that a respected man did back in the day. Again, the middle class is mostly made up of these type of people, even to this very day. And when the middle class man is no longer respected, then the entire thing begins to crumble and collapse. If the woman doesn't respect him, and the kids don't respect him, and other men don't respect him, who are these men? What reason do they have to continue doing what they're doing? What reason do they have to continue being the backbone of society and continue to hold up society? Working at this job is not enough. Okay, why keep working at this job? And again, this makes up the masses of our people. So this is something that does need to be addressed. So this is where you get maybe some Bernie Sanders type ideas coming in. What I suggest in this situation is that anyone listening to this, who you or someone close to you is in this situation, I would suggest you listen to what I told you about the middle class disappearing. Go listen to that whole series on there. And I suggest you come in to work on your game university so we can make sure you and your family have a life raft. If everybody else wants to sink on a boat, that ain't your responsibility. So here's where the individualism comes in. All that said, let's recap today's class, which is why Western society is collapsing. Number 10, individualism. People are more focused on self than they are on the community or the group, and it's being rewarded. People who focus on themselves get rewarded more than people who focus on the team. Number 11, weakened principles and standards. When people feel like they have nothing to lose, they'll throw their principles out the window and their standards out the window if they ever had any, even in the first place. Most people don't even have any. So to throw them out the window is easy because you only got to open the window because they're already out there. And number 12, encroaching laws and less freedoms. In divided populations, some people are happy about this, some are not. Congress passes laws, but they don't take away laws as quickly as they pass them. So this creates an issue. And point number 13, the common man is no longer respected. It used to be a man could have a regular job, work that for 30, 40, 50 years, and be highly respected in his community because he was able to take care of everything with just that salary. These days, that is no longer the case. That is no longer even possible. It's not even plausible to even think like that anymore. The common man losing respect amongst his community, amongst his family, and amongst his peers. Well, if all common men lose all their respect, what's the reason for common men to keep doing what common men do? And there isn't anybody to replace them. We're going to have a problem. All that said, everybody, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com to make sure you get above being regular, get above being average, so that you are far above the fray when the shit hits the fan. Because everything I've told you about in this series is culminating in something happening. This is going to happen while you are still alive. This is not some 100 years from now thing. This is happening soon. So stay tuned and go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. As a matter of fact, do more than stay tuned. Work on your game. Dre, all